Okay, all you YouTube listeners out there in YouTube land, I'm trying to sell my house. I've had trouble with my house. I bought a house in a golf course community in Buckeye, Arizona. This was a golf course village community. It was set up uh, at first that the village and the golf course were all one big happy family. And we had a cell tower that had revenue from Verizon, and we shared the cell tower revenue with uh, the golf course, the HOA and the golf course. But I'll start out that way, but I want to bring you to this note. I'm going to see here, I hope you can see this cursor. The town of Buckeye notes. These notes are from the front of the grading map. You have a large cover sheet grading map. You may see it in another video, but it has all of the Sundance front nine on it, basically, and a lot of notes. And this is one of the notes. This is Town of Buckeye Notes, Note 10. No minimum finish floor elevation shall be changed, altered. Okay, let's read that again. No minimum finish floor elevation shall be altered. Let me take you a little deep in there, down the rabbit hole for this. Before they ever turned a shovel out here for any house, all 1,100 lots in this development were blueprinted. They were blueprinted for utilities. They were blueprinted for grading. And there are two documents that cover the utilities. It's the utility master plan for the community for utilities, which would have sewage, water pipes, electrical, anything that's a utility, any pipe, a drainage pipe, whatever, that utility would be on that master plan. And the other master plan that you can get your hands on is the grading map. The grading map has every elevation on it. You have to understand, this is a very sophisticated plan that came out of Phoenix about 20 years ago. It had all the bells and whistles on it for an urban. This is a high density urban plan, okay? It has all the bells and whistles. Everything on the plan is either on the grading document for like the elevations of the property lines, the elevations for the houses, the elevations for the drain, all those elevations are there. And before that plan left North Phoenix 20 years ago, at every lot relative to the sewer pipe that goes down the street, every lot was assigned a finished floor elevation relative to the street. Okay, and that's what this statement says. I'll blow it up one more time. Let me see if I can get it a little bigger. There it is. No minimum finish floor elevation shall be altered. So that means that every finished floor elevation that was assigned to every lot, all 1,100 lots, around 1,100 lots, that's written in stone. And the reason it's written in stone is because of gravity. they set the gravity meter for every lot, the amount of gravity that will pull sewage to the street. You have to understand sewage, effluent from the sewage, the liquid, everything that you put down the drain and down your toilets are gravity fed to the street. That's why it says no minimum finished floor elevation shall be altered. Because if you alter this finished floor elevation, the sewer pipes that are will be affected. By if you lower the finished floor elevation below the minimum, say somebody says the minimum here, and somebody goes below that minimum, you have caused the gravity to be reduced on the pipe, thus reducing flow and flow rate. When you do reduce flow rate and flow, you start having problems. Why? Because the suspended particulate, the suspended whatever solids that are in the sewage will tend to filter out. The slower you, as you slow the sewage down going down the pipe, you're asking for trouble. That's why this rule. And I wanted to show you this rule first, because now we're going to go to this right here. Okay? This map right here. Bear with me until it comes up. Okay. I want to show you these maps. This is off the grading map. This is the grading map. It gives all the elevations. And I want to show you where 320, 319, 318, 317, 316, and 315, all 6 of these lots, 3 on one side of track day, and then the 3 on the other side, they all have the same finished floor elevation. Okay? Now you have the pad elevation, you have the finished floor elevation, you have 6 lots, we all have the same elevation. Now, these are the elevations of the property line. The numbers that are in the light colored boxes, the light colored boxes were the elevation assigned to that property line, the elevation assigned to this property line, the elevation assigned to that property line. This is all blueprinted. It's blueprinted, okay? Just like a blueprinted engine in a car, okay? Everything is spec'd. Well, I want to show you 316, as you can see in these boxes. This box, it's supposed to be 1.7. They added 4.2. 4.2 divided by 0.008 comes out to, let me see, I've got my 4.2 divided by 0.8. All right, my calculator. All right. Well, 4.2 divided by 0.8 is how much soil they added to this boundary point right here. Over here, it was supposed to be 5.9, it's 3.4. So they added 2.5. 2.5 divided by 0.08 will tell you how much they added there. Here, it was supposed to be 1.3. They made it 5.9. So that's 4.6 divided by 0.08. You're starting to get up to where you're over 20 inches, 20 and 30 inches at these property lines. Like my property line 316, it's supposed to be 1.6, and they raised it to 5.9. So they added 4.3 in their scale, which is probably comes out to about 30 inches, 25, 30 inches. They did it here. Now, not only did they raise this property line right here, but also in 316, I'll show you the permit, they lowered the finished floor elevation. Out of these 6 houses, I know 2 finished floor elevations got lowered. 316 got lowered by, on paper, 2.5 inches. They designed 316 to be 2.5 inches below the spec. They made it 207. They took 0.2. They took 0.2 in their scale. If you take 0.2 and divide it by 0.08, it comes out to 2.5. Okay? They took 2.5 inches off my finished floor elevation. Where it said on the front of the map, you can't touch any elevation. And they took 1.5 inches, I figured with my water levels, they took 1.5 inches out of 317. They took 2.5 inches off mine. They took a 2.5 inches. That affects the sewer pipes. Do you understand? You got about 100-foot run from here to the street to where the sewer pipe is running down the street. And they reduced my floor elevation by 2.5 inches. So that took 2.5 inches of gravity, head pressure, off my sewer pipes. So the force, the angle, the gravity that pulls that sewage to the street got reduced when they tampered with this elevation. Okay, now I took my water levels and I went from 315 to 316, and my water levels show from patio to patio a 3-inch drop. There's a 3-inch drop between 315 and 316. They're supposed to be the same. There's only an inch difference between my patio and 317. So if this one is down like 3 inches, then this one is down 1.5 or 2 inches. They tampered with both of these pads. Okay, they added, you can see that probably works out to 20, 25 inches. They added all along here. And not only did they add it to the property line, they added it to the golf course. The golf course elevation is that high. If I were to dig down to this original elevation here, the one in the light one, I'd have a ditch running across my property because that's the elevation of the golf course is high. But there's a lot of information here, and now I'll go to my permit. Okay, let me reduce this a little bit. Well, first of all, here's the first place I want to show you. Finished floor and pad. See that? It doesn't read 7.27. It reads 707. So they took 0.2 away from this value. 0.2 divided by 0.08 comes out to 2.5 inches. They lowered my floor elevation without telling me. They did it against what the note said on the front of the now I want to show you. Here's the stamp. That's the town of Buckeye stamp. There's the permit number. There's the date, 1/20/04. And this person right here, I don't know who it is. I'm sure people down in Town Hall know who it is. But that's what happened. Now, I'm going to show you. It's 45 feet from property line to property line here. At this point and this point, we're probably 20 inches high or more. Okay? Right here to run along this dotted line, they put a berm. Not only did they raise these property lines an average about 15, 20 inches, what they did is they put a berm following this dotted line was a berm that was uphill from the patio. Now these are my patio, covered patio, and it was uphill from the patio to the berm. Okay? Plus, this line was high. But there's a lot of information. You can see here, there's a 5-foot setback, 5-foot setback. So that means all the houses on this street are like 10 feet apart. They're 10 feet apart. This is high density living. High density living. And I did it again. Let me go back. All right. Now, this was the 20th of January 2004, and they're saying not sold. Not sold. It was sold. I put down $2,000 on this property on December 7th, 2003, Pearl Harbor Day. I gave them $2,000. I picked a plan. I picked a lot. And about 3 weeks later, I had a chance to come back to the valley again from San Francisco. I came down for like the holiday, Christmas and New Year holiday. I walked into the sales office with a check for $28,000. So they had $30,000 of my money at the time that this permit was issued. And as you can see, it says 707. If we go back, to this one, what's it say? 727. And I know it's 2.5 to 3 inches because I made water levels. And what would happen, what that caused for me, you'll see it in the other video. If you look at the video that says sabotage, booby trap lot, HOA lot, that's this lot right here. What they did is they filled this tract A up with dirt so it wasn't draining. There's a letter from Woody Scouten. It's in another video. But that letter from Woody Scouten said, and this finished grade, I got to get my mugshot out of here. I want somebody to look. Finished grade. That's the finished grade of this access easement at the end. 4.5. Here's the finished grade up here, 5.0. So it's 5.0 here at the end of the track on the sidewalk and 4.5 here. All right, so if you take 0.5 and divide it by 0.08, there's only like a few inches drop. There's only a couple inch drop from here to here. And tract A now, when they reworked it, they made it deeper right here. It's a foot under the house. It has to be a foot, or it goes by the house, it has to be a foot under the elevation of the house. But what it does now is you got, I want you to remember this 4.50. This was on the mass, this was the as-built. Okay, you see this 9.98 and this 1.3? Those were the original numbers for here. This was supposed to be 0.98. This was 1.3. And this finished grade right here should have been underneath both of those. It should have been lower than that. But when they put these new figures, here it is right now, they raised it, made it 5.9 there, 5.9 there. So they brought in about 30 inches, 40 inches of dirt. And then they came up with this new threshold. The water couldn't get out. All the water in it to this day, right now, when we have a rainstorm, this is like a canal. It fills up with water. This has to fill up with about 6 or 7 inches of water right here before it finally defeats and runs out here at a finished grade of 4.5. That should be down less than this number. This number 4.5 should be less than 1.3. But they didn't build it that way because it would have let the water run so fast out of this tract, it would have caused damage to the women's teeth. If they would have put this, but I just want you to remember this 4.5 because there's another video coming about, and it'll be 4.5 again. They put it right back to where it was. But I want to show you 314. 314 is a different value. It's 7. This 314 because it went up by 2, by 1. It went up by 1. So 314 and 315 aren't that far apart. But they took and made this 7.07. They took 2.5 inches. So when I make a sign and put it in front of my house saying knockoff house for sale in Sundance active adult, this is what my reference is. Here it is. I can prove it to you with water levels, and I just proved it to you on paper. Here it is proved to you on paper. There's 707. Now I can go to 315s. Okay, now we're at 315s, about 3 months. About 3 months. When I came down to pick the interiors for 316, 315 and 314 were still for sale. And I asked the salesman, I says, I can't believe these haven't sold yet. And he says, well, they haven't sold. I said, can I have them? I paid cash for 316, the first house. And he says, if you are careful how you spend the size of the house you put on that lot, he said, you can put 2 of our loss leaders on those 2 lots. If they'll give you the money, if we'll put you up with our Meritage, you apply with the Meritage finance, and if they give you the money and you stay with under a certain price and you can finance it, you can have them. He says, I suggest they just raise the prices on every model except this base model. This base model was the 1,000 square foot model. They didn't even have a model for this. This is the one they advertised for 99,000 on that big sign out on I-10 for a couple of years. 99,000 for a house on a golf course. Yeah, if you bought their smallest model. Well, they didn't have a model of this. And while they were selling out this parcel, it was their habit to send people interested in the model, the smallest model, they'd send them over to my house. They'd go, we don't have that model here. I'll get back to it. They said, we don't have that model here, but go over to Seward's house and he'll probably let you in and see the model, and you can see what it looks like inside if you go over to his house, because he just built 2 of them over there. And that's what I did. I ordered 2 of the smallest ones, the cheapest, smallest house they made, the 1,000 square foot. And he said, it's our lost leader. We're losing money on it. And you're going to pick up $3,000 just in value and equity, because all the other models got raised $3,000 since you bought the first house. And here's a stamp. It was 4/28/04. So almost 3 months after the first house, right, they got the permit. They issued the permit on this one. And I want to show you. What's it say? 7.27. What is it supposed to read? When I bought these 2 houses, when they went in and got the permit, they did it right. They didn't tamper with the elevation like they did with 316. So I'm going to get a lot of grief, I'm sure, from my neighbors, the HOA, lots of people. When I put a sign out in front of my house that it might read Meritage Lemon House, it might read Meritage Knockoff out, but I have to find a buyer, because, and I have to explain, I've explained this to about 10 or 15 realtors. Some realtors cold call, they'll knock on your door, you let them in, they call you on the phone. Here it is, same one. But I've met and I've called realtors. I've called them. And when I explained to them that the finished floor elevation of my house got tampered with, damn, I keep messing this thing up. And when I show them, tell them and show them that right here, you see that? That doesn't agree with the master community plan. That master community plan is one of your CCRs. It's the CC&R for my finished floor elevation. I have to have it like that. I showed you the note where they couldn't tamper with it. Well, they tampered with it. And the reason they did this is because they filled in tract A. Let me find tract A. Right here. The engineer from town came out and wrote up tract A. He wrote it up. I'm getting so click happy here that the computer's having trouble keeping up. But Woody Scouten came out and he wrote this up. It was filled with plants. Okay? It had this final grade, a threshold, all right, where so because they have a term called ultimate outflow elevation. Ultimate outfall. No, it's ultimate outfall elevation is in one of the drainage manuals for Buckeye. What ultimate outfall elevation is this tract is supposed to be like a standpipe in a toilet. You know the standpipe? You take the lid off the tank and you got that standpipe there so that if the valve that fills the tank, if it's out of adjustment or goes out of adjustment or fails to close the valve, if it is locked open, that was my phone, okay, figures. This is a standpipe like in a toilet. This is an emergency. It's an emergency just for drainage. This is the only drain. And this connects to it. This is an underground drain that goes from this side of the corner. It goes to here. Okay. But this pipe right here is a 24-inch pipe. And you'll see on another print that it got lengthened 89 feet. Not only did it get lengthened 89 feet, this underground pipe, down to the lake, but they dropped the elevation at the lake side by 5 feet. The reason this pipe stopped here is because of pitch, flow rate, okay? That engineer had to stay within a certain flow rate for water through this pipe. And he calculated what the angle was for the flow rate, that it couldn't go over that flow rate. And when he got done, he says, we can only go to here as far as down. We can't go down any lower with this pipe, the discharge end of it, because if we lower it anymore, it'll be dangerous. It'll be over the flow rate. It'll be out of compliance for flow rate. All right, both on the inside where the water goes in and where the water comes out. All right, it could be dangerous to people and property if we allow this flow rate to get too high. But when the plan got out here about 20 years ago, it was decided that we're going to extend the pipe all the way to the lake, 89 feet, and we're going to drop the end of the pipe another 5 feet. All right? Basically, what they did is they doubled or tripled the flow rate in this pipe. It's out of compliance with the master document that the engineer was trying to stay inside. The parameters that the engineer, why he put it there is he had parameters. I can't go over a certain flow rate. Okay? But when the plan got out here, in Buckeye, outside the 12-mile limit, out here with Buckeye, where not one agency in the state, I think, has any oversight in Buckeye. Buckeye, we don't have jurisdiction. Go to any state agency and they'll tell you, we don't have any jurisdiction in Buckeye. They're their own little world. Well, when this plan got out here where they were going to put the pipe here, the people said no. The local contractors, the local business people, the golf course, the future HOA people, everybody decided that we're going to close this. We're going to extend the pipe down to the lake. They're not going to have an emergency standpipe here. All right? We're going to get rid of the emergency standpipe where the water backs up in this drain, that it flows out here down the standpipe that's inside the tank. Well, they took that standpipe inside the tank and they blocked it. So no water can go into the standpipe. Or anybody that's an electrician out there, any electricians out there, anybody that made their living with an electrician, water is like lightning or electricity. Okay, it flows. Water flows like electricity flows, like DC current. All right, you know that big, huge ground wire that they put on everybody's electrical box to go from the circuit breaker box down to a thing driven into the ground about 4 feet as ground? That's what this is, only it's water. But they took it out of service. They filled it up, they filled it with plants, they took this, they put a threshold of 4.5. It's probably about 30 or 40 inches high from the original grade that was put on the map. All right, they did that and they filled it in. Well, the repercussions of that, the effect on me from that was they had a tree right here that was 19 inches above the sidewalk. This house right here was 17 and a half inches above the sidewalk, and my house was 16 and a half inches above the sidewalk. It should have been 19 inches above the sidewalk, the same height as the tree. The tree was 19 inches from the sidewalk and 29 feet away. I was about 50 feet away over here when my finished floor elevation, and instead of being 19 inches like it's supposed to be, it was 16 and a half. And right here between the two houses, right here where my arrow is, if you can see it, between 316 and 317, it was only 8 inches above the sidewalk over here or the manhole. Right here is only 8 inches right here. All through here was the highway. That was the new ultimate outfall elevation. The ultimate outfall elevation is defined as when this pipe backs up or any drainage pipe backs up. The ultimate outfall elevation will be where the water will leave the property first. If this one was built right, it was 19.8. If 318 elevation was right, it was 19 inches above the pad. If this one was built right, it was 19 inches. If this one was built right, it was 19 inches, but it wasn't built right. It's 17 and a half. They took an inch and a half away from them. They took 2.5 inches away from me. All right, I'm supposed to be 19 inches above this. And right here between the two lots was 8 inches, 8 or 9 inches. All the water would have backed up and started going. It wasn't going to go over 318, 19 inches. It wasn't going to go over tract A because that was all filled in. They had a tree 19 inches above the sidewalk here. The water had to defeat, for the water to get out over tract A, it had to defeat 19 inches. All right, and 317 was superior to me, so I was the lowest lot, and this land right here next to was the lowest piece of real estate in all of parcel 12. That's why I had to get FEMA insurance. When I got the letter from Woody Scouton saying that this was filled in, it was condemned, it was illegal, it was a danger to all the other houses in the neighborhood, when I got that letter, I went out and bought FEMA flood insurance. I went out and paid $400 or $500 a year for FEMA flood insurance, and the second year when it came to renew it, FEMA sent me a letter and they wanted a whole bunch of information from me because FEMA looked on the map and saw what I was insuring, and they wanted to know why I was insuring a house, buying flood insurance when I was in a blueprinted neighborhood that was supposed to be built to drain properly. Because it wasn't built to drain properly, and because I had a letter from Woody Scouten saying it was plugged up, and I went out here and by eye and with my water levels, when I realized it was only 8 inches above the manhole cover over here, where every place else it was almost double that, I realized that the first place that this pipe ever fails, if we have a storm that knocks down a lot of limbs and the limbs float down in these rivers, because this turns into a river and this turns into a river when it gets here. When we have thunder boomers, when we have deluge, when we have huge drops of rain in a short period of time, these are two rivers. And if this pipe was to ever fail or get plugged up, say we had a windstorm and a bunch of limbs got carried by the river down here, and because you have so much suction, because they doubled the suction of the pipe, they doubled, tripled the flow rate of this pipe. So anything that gets pulled near the mouth of this pipe, it's got so much suction, there'll be so much of a vacuum, it'll suck those plants, those limbs and stuff into the mouth of this, and there's a chance they could dam it up. Dam it up. You got two rivers coming from two directions, and you've got a dammed up slit here with trees and limbs, and it's dammed up because the pressure, the negative pressure pulling against it is triple, double what it's supposed to be because you tripled the flow rate, doubled it, tripled it. Okay? Now, where it was going to back up was through here. So I went out and I got flood insurance to cover me because my State Farm house insurance doesn't cover floods. Well, on the second year when they sent me the bill, they sent me a questionnaire that made me go scrambling for about 2 or 3 days. They sent me a questionnaire because when they wrote the policy, they did the research. And they sent me a questionnaire the next year. Tell us why, when you're living in a blueprinted neighborhood where you have all the drainage built into the neighborhood, you should have no problem with drainage. Why are you buying FEMA flood insurance? So I gave FEMA like over 2 years, and I scrambled. I had to go get a couple of statements, like elevation statements and stuff like that to satisfy FEMA so they would insure for a second year. And by that time, I had been arrested. I had done my civil disobedience. I walked over this A track. I had a plat map that said I could walk here, so I started walking here. Well, that didn't go over too well with the locals here in Buckeye. Everybody in Buckeye, the police, the court, the HOA, my neighbors, they all felt like you're provoking those people. You're provoking them. You're walking by their house every day for half an hour, going both ways from one end to the other, with a plat map in your hand. And we don't recognize plat maps in Buckeye. We do recognize provocation. You're provoking these neighbors. They've had this arboretum, this tree farm, this green belt, whatever you want, a scenic easement, all to themselves for 10 years. Tax-free, water-free, landscape-free. And the trouble is, these morons that come from small towns in the Midwest, and I call them morons, I'm being kind, they don't understand what's all involved in a high-density urban plan. Okay? They don't understand it. This has to be here. I worked on airplanes, and I'm going to ask anybody out there, is there any pilots or airplane mechanics watching these videos? Is there anybody in our membership group here at Active Adult Sundance Village here in Buckeye? Is there any pilot? Are there anybody that made their living as a pilot or a mechanic? You know what Chapter 36 is, right? Chapter 36, MEL, MEL chapter 36. What is the smallest chapter in the HOA catalog that you can get away with dispatching an airplane if there's something wrong? Now, some chapters like lights and things like that, you can let them go. You can let the plane go, and you put in the, all you have to do is put in the maintenance release, MEL sticker. You can even fly without autopilot. Without autopilot, you can fly by the seat of your pants. All these things in a lot of chapters, but what chapter in the HOA book, the MEL book, is the smallest chapter in all of the MEL book? Chapter 36. Chapter 36 covers emergency equipment, fire extinguishers in the cabin, the overwing exits in the cabin that they ask you, are you willing to remove these? You're in the overwing seats. Are you willing to do what has to be done to get these windows out of the plane? Yeah, all right. So anything that's emergency equipment, and especially emergency door, an emergency door, you got a 757 or a 767, and you got maybe three or four doors on each side of the plane. Okay, you got eight doors, but they all have an emergency function. You got 8 doors that open and close from the inside and outside, but they're also emergency doors, where they blow themselves open. In an emergency, they'll blow themselves open on purpose. They'll deploy the floating, the rafts will deploy. Any chutes to get out of the airplane will deploy. Emergency equipment. Now, there ain't a plane, I don't think, in this country that will leave the ground, or a pilot will dare to leave the ground if he gets a light on in the cockpit saying, we got an emergency door that's out. As soon as that's out and maintenance goes, we can't fix it short term, that plane's dead. It's dead in the water. Now let me tell you what this is. This is an emergency door for water. They plugged up this emergency door. When this plane was being built, as it was coming down the line being built, the local people who were going to build the plane and receive it said, get rid of the emergency door. That emergency door in the far right in the back, it's going away. It's going to be a lounge. Those people have a permanent seat. The people in 318 and 317, they bought a permanent seat, and they don't want to have an emergency door here and a lab. They don't want people coming through here and bothering them. First of all, there's a lab and an emergency door. They got rid of the lab. That lab was the convenience of being able to walk and drive our golf carts onto the golf course. That was our first class lab. Okay? Our first class lab was track day. I lived here. I expected when I bought my lot that when I wanted to play golf, I went out here, I got on this track, I was on the golf course and on my way. Nothing was further from the truth when I closed the house. When I closed this house, this was all filled in. Everything went away. We had no emergency door. And the first class lab was gone. The first class lab, to me, analogous is the use of this. We lost the use of it. We couldn't even walk through here for the first 10 years. You couldn't drive a cart, you couldn't walk through there or anything else for the first 10 years. It was completely taken out of service and made a private lounge with they took the first class lab and moved it to the 7T, right? They took our first-class lab as far as use of this with our golf carts and pedestrian use. They took that out of service right from the beginning. And then what they did is they lowered my finished floor elevation. So if this was to ever back up, fail, to where we needed a standpipe, the standpipe here, they took it out of the toilet tank, they plugged it, and now I'm the floor of the bathroom over here. And when the toilet plugs up and the valve keeps running, to put water in the toilet, it's going to overflow the toilet. You know why? Because we got rid of the standpipe. We plugged it. So we're going to get water all over the floor. That's why I had to buy this insurance, FEMA insurance. And that's why I challenged and I got arrested, because I had a plat map. I'm an urban person. I know what an urban plan is. And I recognize that these two morons, this guy here and this guy here, are so unsophisticated. Their privacy meant more than our safety here. This is a safety valve for water and emergencies. In an emergency of any of these houses in Tract 8 or Parcel 12, Stalag 12, I'll call it Stalag 12, all right? In Stalag 12, if we have any kind of an emergency and those two portals on Sundance Parkway are plugged up, what can happen will happen. I worked on airplanes 30 years. I live by that mantra. Plus, in the Marine Corps, same thing. You're always looking out for safety. And everybody goes, well, that's if. If. You're all talking if. You're talking about ghosts. You're talking about ghosts, things that could happen. Could happen. Let me tell you, Murphy's Law. What can happen will happen. The Navy lives by it. The Air Force lives by it. Almost every aircraft maintenance facility, overhaul, and everything else lives by that rule. What can happen will happen. But here, these morons from the Midwest and the morons running the golf course and the morons that are on the board are normalizing getting rid of this emergency door. All right? Every day this parcel makes a flight. Every 24 hours, this parcel makes a flight into the unknown. Okay? As far as weather, meteorology goes. And the thing about Buckeye, I've been here a long time, 18 years, it don't rain that much here. So the morons that did here, they probably grew up here and they go, it never rains here. We don't have to worry about that. Plus, we've doubled the flow. Any backup or anything, it never will get overwhelmed. This pipe, how could it get overwhelmed with two rivers if we tripled the flow, doubled or tripled the flow through the pipe? All right? So we don't need this. What we need to do is save money building the tee box. There's a lot of instruction on how to build that catch basin on the tee box. You were supposed to use special stuff. You were supposed to have the manufacturer watching you while you installed it. Didn't happen here. But this is why I'm going to put a knockoff house sign for sale. And I'm looking for somebody, I'm hoping to find, is there any United airline pilots out there, US airline pilots out there that are widows or widowers or single with money? And you understand the MEL? You just understood what I told you about the sewer pipes? You understand why my house should have an MEL sticker over the door saying that do not use garbage disposal. All right? Do not do this, do not do that. Be very careful because you don't have a fully 100% functioning sewage system. They took 2.5 inches off your head pressure. It's out of compliance with the master plan, the CC&R. Okay? Now, if I could find a lawyer that would help me here, I'd be all right. But that's why I've been a stick in the mud for the HOA. This is why they kicked me out of the HOA. They did. They kicked me out of the HOA. When I went to the first meeting after they reinstalled this no golf cart sign, all right, they segregated this. This is segregation. This is the old South during Reconstruction. They took this away from everybody. Okay? Everybody had a right to use this, but they made it segregated. Only white people from Colorado and Nebraska can use this lab. This lab is dedicated to a moron from Nebraska and a moron from Colorado. And now they've been replaced by a moron from Alberta or Canada and a moron from Minnesota, another farmer from Minnesota. We don't want to share this, right? Even though we know this is an urban plan, a high density urban plan, we got 65 houses and 13 acres. Everybody's on top of each other. And as far as I was concerned, I didn't get what I paid for. First of all, what I got was a non-compliant sewage system. They took and made me the new ultimate outfall elevation. The water was going to go right through here. Any backup in this corner, and the water was going to go right out through here first. Okay? I get long-winded, but I've been dealing with these idiots here, out here in Buckeye now, for like 18, 19 years. And they look at you like you have two heads when you talk about the citizen responsibility of respecting this map. An engineer put a lot of time and effort into drawing this map and figuring out these elevations, only to have, when it got out here to bucolic Buckeye in 2003, these redneck cowboys, street engineers, morons decided, well, this is Buckeye. We don't need this. We got a couple of people we want to take care of up there. We're going to take care of this guy. We're going to take care of that guy. They're going to have this publicly owned tract all to themselves, tax-free, water-free, an hour of water a day, and all the landscaping that has to be done by 3 guys about every 6 months, that's paid for by us. And nobody can use it but you. This is your own little paradise. You must have read the book. I think these guys read the book by Trump, The Perfect Deal, right? How to Make a Deal, The Perfect Deal. They must have read his book because that's a perfect deal. They paid for a lot on an access easement. This guy paid for a lot out of on an access easement, and they don't want to honor it. They don't want to honor this. Okay? We're dumb friggin' rednecks from the woods back in the Midwest. We live on a farm. We want the farm with us. We're the top of the pecking order. Do you understand the hierarchy that took place here? This is plantation living. These are plantation owners that show up for a couple of months a year to live here, and the rest of the time they're back home. I live here year round. I've been away from Arizona in the last 18 years since I moved here. I've been away from here for maybe a total of about a month one summer, the summer after I got arrested. I was so sick of Arizona and the people that arrested me and everything. I was so messed up in the head. If you can imagine being arrested on a summons that you never got served on. You spend 4 days in jail, you get out of jail, you go in front of this punk judge who's about 15 years younger than you. He's on reprimand from another higher judge for being an idiot. And this guy holds up my summons in front of me and says, "We don't have to tell you." And everybody in the courtroom, all the officers of the court, all the guys in uniform, everybody, the prosecutor, everybody in the court just stood there and said nothing when he held up my summons in front of me and says, "Of course you didn't know about it. We arrested you, put you in jail for four days, give you a mug shot, fingerprints and everything else. Now we know who you are, and we've got your fingerprints and mug shot, and we sold your mug shot to one of these mugshot.com. So from now on, anybody, all they have to do is put your name in Google and your arrest record and mugshot comes up." And we did all that without sending you a summons. We did all that because we interpreted your walking on tract A as provocation. But they don't see that I'm sitting here right here in my house wondering, it doesn't drain, there's no access easement, and emergency vehicles can't get in and out. Now, what more provocation can you put on somebody that bought a house for cash? What more provocation can you put on me than to close my access easement on the golf course, fill it in with trees, deny me access to it, all right? And then you make my lot the highway for water out of the parcel. Any failure of this pipe at all, any failure, whether it was overrun or that slit that feeds it got all nothing but limbs and debris in it, and it started backing up and damming up, everything was going to go through here. Okay? Now, I'm sorry about my language. You probably don't appreciate being called morons and bucolic and idiots, but it matches. It fits. These are two selfish individuals who are being catered to by the HOA and the golf course and the town of Buckeye that we're not going to make you look at golf carts. We should tell you, if you don't want to see golf carts on an access easement that's on the plat map, it's a legal access easement. There's no asterisk on it that says that it can't be used for golf carts. It has the same legal description as every other tract in the community, and all those tracts are open. They're all open to golf carts and emergency vehicle. Parcel 12 is the only parcel in all of Sundance that doesn't have a motorized cart path or emergency vehicle access, either way, on or off the golf course. Okay? This was a flim flam, it was grift, whatever you want to call it, but that's what happened. And this is going on a sales website. I'm hoping that there's a pilot out there, and I know women started flying for United as early as the middle 80s. So if you're a retired, single, female pilot who understands what I'm saying about MEL, okay, this house has an MEL on it. If you're single and you don't throw parties and you're kind of by yourself, that's the way the lady that lived here for 12 years was, and that's the way I am living here now. We don't use over 3,000 gallons of water a month. Okay? We don't have parties. We don't have 2 or 3 family members showing up for a week at a time, using the shower, using the garbage disposal. I've got total control of my bathroom, my garbage disposal, and my sink. All right? And if you are a pilot, a widow, a single person, and you want to live that lifestyle, that you understand, I love the house, everything works, he's never had trouble with anything, but the reason he doesn't have trouble is because he watches everything that goes down the drain. Just like if somebody said, your fuel tank, you got a fuel problem. You got a fuel indication problem. When we have fuel indication problems on a tank and we can't tell what's in there, what we do is we fill that tank up on the ground. We fill it completely up on the ground. So the guy, when he leaves, even though he doesn't have fuel indication, he knows that that tank is filled. And when it runs out, he knows how much he's burned. Okay? And he can fly with 1 or 2 bad fuel gauges. But it means he has to do calculating. It means that while he's flying, he has to monitor this. He has to monitor something. Or if they say one of your labs out in the back, they lock it out, they put a sign on it, in op. Okay? But that's in the book. It's MEL. It tells you. That's what I'm saying. Anybody out there who's a retired pilot that understands what I'm saying, bring a lawyer. Bring cash and a lawyer. And if you can afford to have 1 or 2 lawyers on retainer, that's really who I want to sell to. I'd rather sell cash to somebody that when I look them straight in the eye and say, you do understand that the house is a knockoff. And the guy goes, thank you for telling me. Thanks for the pass down. Thank you for being honest with me. I'll take it from here. Me and my 3 lawyers will see if we can get that thing opened up. I know you can't afford lawyers. You've been right out straight with these idiots for 19 years. But I have enough money. I love the house. It's right where I want it, right on the signature hole, overlooking the lake. I love the house. It's perfect for me. I'll give you your money. Thanks for being honest, the honest pass down. And then me and my lawyers, we're looking for a fight. All right? Maybe my father got drove to an early grave by an HOA. Maybe my father died a couple years earlier, committed suicide because of an HOA. So you've got a little vindictiveness into you. All right? Come and buy my house. I can't wait to get out of here. All right? This has been like, I feel like a black person. I hope I don't offend any black people, but if you listen to my explanation, you might understand. When I got here, I didn't have an arrest record. I was free to use the HOA. I didn't have any fines on me. I wasn't kicked out of the HOA. I didn't have this charade pulled on me with this track where it was closed for 10 years. I get arrested trying to open it. And for 2 years, it's open. And then after they get the mayor gets reelected again. And his campaign manager is the head of, he's the most senior person on the board, and he's the mayor's campaign manager. And the mayor gets elected for his 3rd term, okay? It was decided, we're putting a sign up here. These 2 people who've had this all to themselves for 10 years don't want it anymore. They've kind of lost face. They don't want to leave. They don't have what they had before. They've lost faith because for 10 years they told everybody in the neighborhood you couldn't walk here. For 10 years they told everybody this isn't an easement until I got arrested. And when I got arrested, I think the town attorney more or less took him aside, maybe Craig Hustis, a few people took him aside and said, "You trampled that guy's civil rights. You trampled him. You trampled his civil rights. He's got a clean record. He's got a credit rating in the stratosphere up around 800. He's never missed a payment or done anything here. He's invested huge money here. All right? You arrested him on a warrant that he never got served on. You trampled his civil rights. Okay? Well, finally, they did something. They dug this out. And the first thing they put in was shot rock. They put in these big chunks of rock so nobody could walk on it. All right? They made it so you couldn't drive a golf cart or walk on it because they put these huge chunks of rock in it. Right? They did these two people a favor. Don't worry, you're still not going to have to worry about golf carts. You're not going to have to worry about golf carts. We fixed it for you. We put in huge chunks of rock. We didn't put in grouted riprap where people could drive their golf cart. Like I said, this was a flim flam. A bunch of morons out here in Buckeye, arrogant morons, probably Lodge brothers. They figure nobody will ever figure this out. And I know they're arrogant. They're arrogant. I mean, for the sake of Lebensstrom, that's what it is. This is Lebensstrom for these people from the Midwest. We need living space. We're not like the people who buy these other houses. We're not like them, and we're not like other people who buy on tracts. We're special. We need Lebensstrom, living space. We don't want to own these houses unless we own this tract or we're given custody of it. We're given custody of this tract, and we can tell anybody we want that they can't walk here. And if we do find somebody that's bold enough to walk through here, all right, we're going to follow them with a camera all week, and then we're going to have him arrested for missing a court date that he never knew about. I just want to give you a little flavor of what Buckeye tastes like. Okay? Like I said, I hope I didn't offend any black people, but I feel like a black slave at the end of the Civil War that I had complete freedom. I had freedom to vote. I had freedom to do this. I had freedom to do that. All right? There was no segregation then. There was no black laws then. There wasn't a Ku Klux Klan there. But within 20 years of living here, I've had slave chasers write me up about 30 times. The slave chasers, the people that go through the neighborhood and write up houses, I've been written up 30 or 40 times, I swear. And it's always when you go in, you go, I had it like that for years. And the guy says, there's no time limit on compliance. That's the first thing out of their mouth. They teach them like a trained seal. When you go in and say something, the first thing out of their mouth like a trained seal is, there's no time limit on compliance. You're either compliant or you're not. Well, guess what? This house sewer pipe, this house is the parking lot lemon for Meritage. It's a knockoff. It's a knockoff house. Why? Because the sewer pipes have been reduced to flow. If these sewer pipes were run, say, like by a 12-volt DC battery, if it had a pump, a 12-volt pump that was run by a 12-volt battery to drive the fluid to the street, the sewage to the street, say it had a battery, a 12-volt battery, by reducing that elevation, it's the same as putting a 14-volt battery on that pump. That pump isn't going to work with only 14 volt feeding it. Voltage is head pressure. If you watch any physics science show on head pressure, they always compare it to voltage. DC voltage and head pressure are the same thing. Head pressure is the deviation between where the sewage is going and where it starts. Okay, that distance, elevation before where it ends at the sewer pipe and where it starts is has been tampered with. It's been tampered with. The voltage isn't there. Okay, they took 2.5 inches of voltage off my gravity battery. All right, so I have to warn anybody, if you're an airline pilot, if you're anybody that's independently wealthy with a chorus of lawyers, please come and buy my house. Please come and buy my house, and then have your lawyers start sending questions to this mob that's running the place, to these racketeers that for 10 years, for the last 18 years, have run this access easement. It's graft for the profit, for the sake of these two investors from Colorado and Nebraska. Now that, like I said, now they're from Minnesota and Canada, but they got the same rights. And they were waiting in the wings to buy. They were waiting. They were waiting in the wings. Once you get that sign in there that says no golf carts, we'll be right down and give you a full price offer. And that's exactly what happened. I'm going to say goodbye now. You're probably sick of talking to me and hearing me. That's okay. But I'm going to stop now. You've seen it.